Welcome, folks. I am Jabby Kaway, joined by Achara Kirk.
What's up?
We've got a whopper of a video in front of us. Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness breakdown, full movie Easter eggs you missed. You guys, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate y'all being here. Please do me a favor and hit that subscribe button, bell icon, all notifications, and pretty please vote this up to let YouTube know you're enjoying what you're watching. While you're subscribing and upvoting, make sure to subscribe to New Rockstars. There's a link in the description below. You can click on that link and give the original video an upvote. Subscribe to him from there. All right, here we go.
Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Eric Voss, and this is a breakdown of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, a movie that teaches us all a valuable lesson about what happens when Marvel fans dream too big. The Scarlet Witch will break all your toys and make you watch. Director Sam Raimi gave us the MCU's first true horror film that also rewrites the rules of the MCU in so many cool ways. So let's break down this movie scene by scene for the incredible attention to detail and deeper layer of meaning that you might have missed. Also, we have a new Multiverse of Madness inspired latest Obsession shirt that looks amazing. You gotta get your hands on that one over at newrockstarsmerch.com. So the Marvel Studios title card in this movie has been updated. The shots that previously showed Endgame moments have all been replaced with Wanda's Scarlet Witch power-up in WandaVision and various shots of Doctor Strange.
I didn't even clock that.
Film wow. Endgame. The final shot on the M of Marvel Studios is Strange's final scene in the 2016 film, but in the inner top of the R was Wanda's team up with her family in
Oh my gosh.
So this is actually the first time anything from a Disney Plus title has made it into the title card. Just proving how important Wanda's experience with her kids from that show is to this movie.
You know, that is a great clock that he just did. Like, that was a great catch because, you know, a lot of times they swap those things out, but this time it was really tied into the film that you're about to watch. That's really interesting.
I think I kind of clocked some like Wanda or whatever, but I didn't realize that it was so much.
Also, fun to note that behind Wanda's family in that shot is the Westview Cinema with Oz the Great and Powerful playing, a 2013 movie also directed by Sam Raimi.
Oh, shoot.
Oz and its witches definitely
have
parallels in this movie's story. I'll get to that later. But the film opens in the Gap Junction as Defender Strange races with America Chavez toward the Book of Ashanti, fleeing this ribbony monster marked with runes. Later we learn a puppet marionetted by the Scarlet Witch. America Chavez is a young multiverse hopper from the comics who comes from the utopian parallel, and you'll notice how the opening words exchanged in this film are in Spanish, underlining Chavez's role as the first Latina superhero of the MCU, as well as the first LGBTQ plus superhero. Her star emblazoned jacket has a pride flag.
Wait, Salma Hayek in Eternals doesn't count as a superhero in the MCU? It's like she's one of the Eternals.
Fair point. She died though.
That has nothing to do with anything. I'm saying, isn't she the first Latina? I mean, I don't know what came first here in terms of the comic books, but in terms of the film order, like, she definitely showed up first.
That's true.
So.
That's true.
Pin on it. On her jacket is also written the phrase "Amor es amor," Spanish for love is love.
That's what it said.
Now, the Book of Vishanti, also from the comics, is a book of positive counterspells, sharing its name with the seal of Vishanti, the shape formed by the window of the Sanctum Sanctorum. Now, the Gap Junction is later described as a space between universes, and here it's presented as a sacred church-like plane, but now in ruins, as if the damage already done to the fabric of the multiverse in titles like Loki and Spider-Man No Way Home have taken a toll on this place. And this week, Marvel head Kevin Feige confirmed that the multiversal crises of those titles directly set the stage for the crisis of this film. The platform with the book on it has 16 walkways converging out from it, many of them broken off. A cool way of showing how all the universes that connect to this are all back doors leading to this one book, but many of those universes and those pathways have crumbled and eroded. Now, Defender Strange seems at first like the gallant to the goofus that we've known, multilingual, only using defensive spells like freezing and binding, hair tied back in a ponytail like the chillest barista ever. But we learn the constant among all Stranges, a willingness to sacrifice friends. In this case, America. He says, "This is the only way." And in the grand calculus of the multiverse, your sacrifice before he gets cut off. Both of these lines being callbacks, linking this Strange variant to our Doctor Strange, who after sacrificing the Time Stone to Thanos' Infinity War told Tony Stark,
"There was no other way."
And recently in Spider-Man No Way Home told these exact words to Peter Parker in relation to the deaths of Norman Osborn and the rest being necessary.
In the grand calculus of the multiverse, their sacrifice means infinitely more than their lives.
But a fatally wounded Defender Strange tumbles with America through a star portal, and the camera work of Sam Raimi and director of photography John Matheson rotate in a really fun way so that we wake up with our Doctor Strange in bed having seen all of this as a dream. Now this movie actually defines all of dreams as us seeing into the lives of our multiversal selves, a concept that has been explored in real-world metaphysics, but in the MCU poses some interesting questions. Were the nightmares Wanda gave the Avengers in Age of Ultron visions of other universes? Tony's dream that he told Pepper about in Infinity War?
Oh my God, I never thought of
We had
that.
a kid. So real. We named him after your eccentric uncle. What was his name?
Right.
Morgan.
Of course, they would eventually have a kid named Morgan, so Tony's dream there likely was an alternate universe. So Strange glances over at his broken wristwatch, the one from the 2016 film given to him by Christine Palmer and broken by robbers outside Kamar-Taj, a watch face that he left broken to reflect the unhealable wound of his hands and his mastery of the mystic and the mental over the physical. In this film, the watch symbol evolves to symbolize his forever broken relationship with Christine and how that's actually okay. Strange uses magic to tie his tie, a reminder that his hands are still damaged from his accident in the 2016 film. His hands truly are his unhealable wound.
I
At
thought
the
he was
wedding,
just
he
lazy.
passes this mom with 2 sons. Just a little echo of the conflict that he's about to face with Wanda, trying to reunite with her sons, who are roughly the same age. Dr. Nick West returns to the 2016 film and reveals he too dusted in the blip and lost 2 cats and, oh yeah, a brother too. He ponders if there could have been any other path Strange might have taken in Infinity War, and by having to think about this, Strange faces that his sacrifice play of the Time Stone, while it eventually led to the Avengers being able to fix things, sort of, in Endgame, it also left survivors living with the emotional toll of that conflict. And in Wanda's case, Thanos using that same Time Stone to render her heartbreaking killing of Vision meaningless.
Yeah.
Strange turns a glass of water into wine, friggin' Jesus over here, also reminding us of when he refilled Thor's beer mug in Ragnarok. Really the best way to use magic, if you ask me. Strange apologizes, saying that he made sacrifices to protect Christine, but that he's glad she's happy. Really, this whole movie is a tug of war between sacrifice on one hand and happiness on the other. Our heroes begin this movie
Yeah, they
thinking
bring
that
that up a
sacrifice
lot.
comes at the cost of personal happiness, but must learn by the end of the film that sacrifice and what we think we want is really how we find deeper fulfillment and inner peace.
Yeah.
Strange hears commotion outside and tugs his red pocket square, revealing it as his cloak of levitation.
That was
Not
cool.
believe the shit I got in trailer breakdowns for theorizing that pocket square was his cloak. I love how he summons it in free fall, making this his version of Tony Stark being caught by the Mark 7 armor while falling in the Avengers film. Now, this beast is initially invisible, similar to how the supernatural forces of Moon Knight are initially invisible to onlookers, but Strange decloaks it to reveal the squid monster of Gargantos, a lesser-known comics foe to Namor the Submariner. And I love how the animators use his single eye to characterize him. His surprise when Strange dismantles the bus, his eyelid crease to show anger, his pupil dilation when Strange severs his tentacle, and of course, the look of, oh shit, when the eye is about to get skewered.
Yeah.
Now, Danny Elfman's score charges this whole film with a madcap, feverish energy, and here he uses some great horns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, his use of horns was dope in the film.
Evoking Masorgi's Night on Bald Mountain, aka the Fantasia devil music. The back of the bus has an ad for La Llave Coffee, unlock a better day. La Llave being Spanish for key, a hint at Strange's upcoming quest to use his watch to unlock the back door, and also this Spanish-speaking superhero being the key to his multiverse. Also nearby is an ad for The Magic, a celestial tea, and when Strange jumps on a taxi, there's a sign behind him for Stan Lee's, which might be a nod to Stan Lee,
most def.
whose real name was Stanley Lieber, and the 2008 Hulk movie paid tribute to him with Stanley's Pizza. Wong shows up to try to restrain Gargantos. Gargantos uses one of his suction cuffs to detach his kunai, maybe showing how he does have some defensive moves against the kinds of attacks Namor might hit him with. He scales a building, Sam Raimi evoking his sequence with Doc Ock scaling the building in 2004's Spider-Man 2. Meanwhile, back at the wedding, behind Christine and Charlie is a cameo by this movie's screenwriter, Michael Waldron. Strange uses his giant remote hands
that's
to use a
cute.
lamppost to javelin Gargantos in the eye and then pops that eye out with its connective tissue looking a lot like Sam Raimi's hilarious flying eyeball in Evil Dead 2. Strange and Wong mentioned their recent deal with Spider-Man and No Way Home, and America asks if he shoots webs out of his butt, referencing how Tom Holland Peter and Andrew Garfield Peter were both pretty grossed out by how Tobey Maguire Peter's webbing came out of his body, a production design choice that was actually made by Sam Raimi in that initial series.
Like, does it just come out of your wrists, or does it come out of anywhere else?
Only the wrists.
I thought that was I didn't think they were talking about the butt orifice. I thought they were talking about the other
I would
orifice.
thought, yeah, me too.
I just was reminded, there's a dinner, not a dinner, but like a lunch sequence between Doctor Strange, Wong, and America Chavez. and she balks at the notion of a Spider-Man. Like, what kind of superhero is a Spider-Man? This woman has gone through 72 alternate universes and seen some crazy shit, but the name Spider-Man is what gives her pause.
Yeah, clearly she is not familiar with the Spider-Verse.
Oh, right, exactly.
Now, wait, didn't Strange and Wong forget about everything after that movie's final memory wipe spell?
Yes, Peter Parker.
Not exactly. They only
But not
forgot
Spider-Man.
who Peter Parker is. They still remember a
had this
masked Spider-Man
conversation.
being part of their history. Like, notice here, they never call him Peter Parker and aren't really sure how his webbing works, just to further prove that he's just back to being a stranger to them. But they still know of a Spider-Man existing in this universe. America shows them Defender Strange's corpse on the Sanctum roof, and Strange buries him up there, saying that he's, quote, buried worse. And I'm dying to know who else in Strange's life that he has buried and where.
Or
now,
what?
they realized that the matching runes on the two beasts was witchcraft, and so we returned to Wanda's kitchen in Westview using the same WandaVision episode 2 Bewitched inspired intro music, which is composed by the Lopezes. In this kitchen, they have a hamster cage labeled Max, maybe short for Maximoff, replacing Sparky the dog. Billy and Tommy return here, back to wearing the same red and green colors as Wiccan and Speed do in the comics. Wanda wakes up from this dream alone in her bed, and I love how the warm golden color tone of the room shifts to a colder gray as she sits up. Just another example of dreams being windows into her alternate selves. Then Wanda prunes branches in an apple orchard. Just really cool symbolism here. She says apples eventually, as they haven't yet borne fruit, as her efforts to produce a life with her sons has also been fruitless.
Oh, by the way, that I forgot to mention like how much I love that shot of when she's coming out of her dream walking and she still like it seems to be able to see her children.
Yeah.
But kind of can't because she's back at the Kamar-Taj. I thought that movement with the camera like matching as she's standing up trying to touch her kids that aren't there anymore, like that was so dope. That was nice editing, nice camera work and everything.
Yeah, it was really great.
He prunes errant branches, paralleling the ways he who remains in the TVA would prune branch timelines to exert control over the multiverse. Kind of like how Wanda has been using the Darkhold to X off universes without her sons in them. And these being apples definitely reminds us of the poisoned apple of the Witch Queen of Snow White, which actually gets revealed later on in this film.
I thought it was more a biblical reference, Adam and Eve.
And Wanda claims she put reality warping witchcraft behind her after Westview, yet even here the simulation seems real enough to nearly fool Strange. They chat.
What do you know about the multiverse?
Viz had his theories. He believed it was dangerous.
And then she drops the branches in a crate labeled Volkers or Volkers. Now in the comics, Wendell Volker is an academic who, along with Reed Richards, discovers that Baron Zemo has traveled back in time in a 2007 Thunderbolt story. I don't know, maybe this is on a Sokovian estate that Wanda has overtaken temporarily, somewhere close to that mountain cabin we saw her in. Wanda says there are other Avengers, and Strange mentions the Archer with the Mohawk and several bug-themed crime fighters, of course referring to Hawkeye, Ant-Man, the Wasp, Spider-Man, and possibly now the Scarlet Scarab from Moon Knight. And he says,
We'll get you back on the lunchbox.
there actually is a vintage Marvel superheroes lunchbox with Spider-Man, Cap, and Thor on the front, Fantastic Four on the back, and on the sides, Scarlet Witch, Daredevil, and Yellow Jacket. Wanda mistakes using America's name when Strange hadn't yet. So she drops the illusion, that red hex looking just as it did when it warped the structures of Westview and WandaVision. All of this coming from the Darkhold, Marvel's Book of the Damned, which Wanda got from the witch Agatha Harkness in WandaVision. This whole dead landscape is likely near that mountain cabin. From the WandaVision post-credit scene, all the plants now rotting more and more as the Darkhold corrupts the landscape. And actually in the background of this burnt orchard are the ruins of some structure. That was probably what the large house was when the illusion was up. That structure might be the cabin she was in the WandaVision post-credit scene.
For some reason, even though it's obvious, I didn't realize the Darkhold was corrupting everything around that environment, and that's why it looked like that. It didn't dawn on me. I just like, because you know, it has this it contrasts the environment that we were just made to believe that we were in, which is like very beautiful and green and whatnot and lush. And it looking the other way, I never thought about why it looked like that. I just like, well, that's just Wanda's YMCA or something. Like that's just her space.
I almost thought it was like a space out of time, you know, just like a little pocket of just outside our reality or something. But this makes so much more sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Wanda's Scarlet Witch wardrobe has evolved since we last saw it in WandaVision. Scratches radiate from the heart region, showing how her fracturing of reality all stems from a broken heart. And the stitching on her collar leaves an opening in the shape of Vision's Mind Stone, reflecting how that heartbreak began when she had to shatter her love's mind in Infinity War. Wanda says America's sacrifice would be for the greater good, which Strange says is the justification of their enemies, but it's also essentially what Defender Strange told America. So when Wanda criticizes Strange for giving up the Time Stone in Infinity War so that Thanos could render her heartbreaking sacrifice to her vision pointless, she's totally right. Strange is a hypocrite.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem fair.
Back at Kamar-Taj, Wong explains that the Scarlet Witch was prophesized to either rule or annihilate the cosmos, recalling what Agatha read from the Darkhold.
Your power.
Hold on, why is it Why is he saying that Wanda is right?
Doctor Strange is being hypocritical.
Why?
She's saying that by her taking America Chavez, it's for the greater good. And he's like...
How is it the greater good when it's a selfish endeavor?
Okay.
Yeah.
Set that aside. Her argument is that it's for the greater good, right? And he's saying that's what our enemies say. And then Eric Voss pointed out that what he did with the Time Stone by giving it to Thanos was for the greater good. I mean, yeah, it was. It
legitimately was.
It legitimately was. He's being hypocritical in a way because while she's saying it's for the greater good, he's also used that argument.
Okay.
Is I think what Eric
I think the
Voss
reason
is
why
trying to
I
say.
failed to see it as hypocritical was because Doctor Strange legit looked at like 14 million different possibilities and was like, nope, that's the only one. I was like, it's kind of hard to call him hypocritical in my mind. Like without that context, it was hard to call him hypocritical if that was literally the only way forward.
I see your side as well now that you're saying it, but I'm also like, yeah. For me, right, it's not like Doctor Strange has not been selfish or a bit of an asshole sometimes.
Right.
Exceeds that of the Sorcerer Supreme. It's your destiny to destroy the world.
Kamar-Taj mounts its defenses. Master Amir returns in the 2016 film, and we meet Sarah, likely based on Wong's romantic partner of Sarah Wong
you're right.
from the comics, and the Minotaur Sorcerer
he
of
said it.
Rintra. Also from the comics. Sorcerers from the Hong Kong and London sanctums join them. Remember, the 2016 film established the 3 sanctums of Earth being in New York, London, and Hong Kong. And behind that one guy, the portal to London has one of the city's signature red phone booths, because that always means London. Wanda arrives with a dark cloud,
Might as well put
similar to
Big
the
Ben.
Wicked Witch of the West attack on the Emerald City, writing "Surrender, Dorothy" and "Smoke." This being another witch demanding the magic girl from another reality
That's
give
true.
herself up so she can use her in her quest to power. Actually, you can map this whole movie over the Wizard of Oz.
Wow.
The shots of them running along a brick road. Defender Strange being the brainless scarecrow who ends up wobbling around puppeted. Our Strange, the heartless tin man who cuts. Wong, the lion who gets his nerve. The Illuminati, of course, the great and powerful Oz, ultimately proving to be total liars. Variant Christine, Glinda the Good Witch, who ultimately teaches Strange that there's no place like his home reality. I mean, The Wizard of Oz is one of the coolest, scariest, and most visually inventive films of all time. Any multiverse movie is right to follow its lead. Wanda probes the Kamar-Taj barrier and then finds a sneakier way in by whispering into the mind of one sorcerer, similar to how she dismantled the Avengers in Age of Ultron by implanting visions in their temples and just freaking them out. She blasts the hell out of Kamar-Taj, all of its artillery and its archers, leaving one poor sorcerer in pain that she just obliterates, which seems cruel at first, but the guy was also in a lot of pain. You could also read as an act of mercy. Strange traps Wanda in a mirror dimension trap that ticks down with mechanical music box music until the shards jab out at her. At this point, Wanda's fingertips have turned black the way Agatha's did in WandaVision when she used magic derived from the Darkhold. They retreat into the inner chamber where the camera glides and distorts as doors slam. Raimi shoots all of this with the same claustrophobia and external evil trying to break in that made The Evil Dead so fun. And like the possessed woman there, we only see the demon hands reaching up to grab people, which is also the kind of imagery Raimi used in Drag Me to Hell. Strange realizes Wanda is using reflective surfaces to get in, and as they rush to cover each mirror and puddle, on the first one that Strange covers, for just a few frames, Raimi sneaks in one of Wanda's eyes glaring up at Strange. Creepy. Wanda's eye returns to scare America, and then her hand reaches out through the gong.
Did you see Drag Me to Hell? That was with, what's his name, who used to do the Apple ads?
Justin Long.
Justin Long. I believe that was Justin Long. And there was this thing in the film that the main character forgets about that Justin Long presents. That's why the lady, the main girl in the movie ends up, it's been a while since I've watched it, but I just remember that like by the train tracks and she ends up being pulled back into hell at the end of the movie. And it's like right when you think everything is fine and dandy and it's a happy ending, she gets pulled back into hell and it's just like this dark ending. That's what I was reminded of when I saw the ending of Multiverse of Madness. It's like everything's hunky-dory and then, oh my God, my eye.
Yeah.
On my forehead. You know, it's like very much Sam Raimi.
She crawls in with distorted limbs looking like the girl from The Ring.
Yes.
Strange unleashes serpents from his hands, looking similar to the ones Supreme Strange absorbed and weaponized in What If Episode 4. And Wanda begins to drain America's power, so Strange dives into America and they tumble through the multiverse, and it is insane. They pass a dimension with 3 cloaked heads. These are the faces of the Living Tribunal, the ultimate legal cosmic entity in Marvel lore who oversees natural law of the multiverse, with 3 faces representing necessity, equity, and revenge.
Did you catch that? society?
Yeah.
Here,
Oh.
they are not on the same head, just 3 different heads. Maybe away this universe in a 4th dimensional space
was
shows
like-
how they would look from a 4th dimensional being. In the Infinity Gauntlet comics, the Living Tribunal acquitted Thanos for snapping away half of all life, and the Infinity War writer said that they actually drafted a scene where Strange and Thanos would have faced the Living Tribunal during their wizard duel. Then they enter this cosmic realm with all these curved paths that snake back toward a glowing source. Kind of looks like a mix of the Celestials, World Forge, and Eternals, but I think we might be seeing Cerebro, Professor X's famous way of connecting with all the minds of mutants. Then they fall through a freaking beehive filled with bees lined with honeycomb.
Yeah.
Now we later learned in this movie it was a bee landing on America's finger that first triggered her fear and opened the star portals that took her moms from her. Is this what the hexagons and the beekeeper from WandaVision were all about? Can someone tell me, please? Then they're underwater beside a coral reef, and some of those fish swim out with them back to the open air New York, where they pass taxis with the ads Grindhouse Releasing, which is a company that remasters cult films that partnered with Sam Raimi to restore The Evil Dead, and it's run by Bob Murawski, who also edited this movie. The next universe is a grid of techie tubes that's actually filled with Stark drones from Spider-Man Far From Home. Perhaps it's a reality where they overthrew humanity. Then a hellish space filled with bones. True fire and brimstone here. Strange runs into a pile of skulls. Other skeletons are climbing lampposts made out of spines. All the buildings are made of bones. I mean, I would say this is just the MCU hell, but this movie also shows us like multiple possible hells. And Moon Knight did just explain that the MCU afterlives of the Egyptian underworld and the Wakandan ancestral plane are actually part of the same realm, just subjectively taking the form of whatever the believer believes. So these various hells might be part of that same belief-oriented afterlife system. Next, a universe with a T-Rex fighting a Triceratops. Then an animated universe with some goofy marching band music. Now, this is not exactly the animated style from What If, and they do pass that Jonas and James sign, so this is actually the same spot where they fought Gargantos. Then this interesting reality with the wreckage of some propeller plane with green flames. I don't know, I thought maybe this could be the Valkyrie plane from the first Cap film if it had made it to its intended target of New York. Then a reality where everything takes a cubic form. I just love how the break line between the blocks separates on the teeth of Strange's open mouth. Then they shift into sloshing paint, a reality where America says she's been trapped in before, making it really hard to eat. Then, I love this, an old-timey film desaturated with wear on the celluloid, showing 1930s New York, Model T's the Brooklyn Bridge in a blimp overhead. This is the world that Steve Rogers and Bucky Barnes grew up in. Then this interesting alien setting that also looks a bit ancient because it includes a Stonehenge configuration. Now remember, Thor the Dark World suggested Stonehenge was part of a coordinate layout to triangulate the convergence. So maybe this is the alien society who helped lay out those coordinates. Then 2 more futuristic looking realities. Then a rocky volcanic setting with lava rivers looking a lot like Mustafar from the Star Wars universe. Actually, in a similar montage in What If Episode 8, Ultron Infinity and the Watcher, that also looked a lot like Mustafar. And they land in Dimension 838, a utopian Manhattan covered with plant life and wind turbines, all built into the skyscrapers. The Empire State Building has a waterfall coming from it. This actually seems like the direction 616 Manhattan was going in the MCU, with Far From Home revealing a new atrium constructed into the Avengers Tower, and various Fantastic Four hints at the ground level. All the advances of this reality were almost certainly innovations of Reed Richards. They're on the roof of the 838 Sanctum. You can actually see the same greenhouse and mound where Defender Strange was buried back in 616. Strange said he had been on weird trips before, of course referring to the similar multiverse montage from the 2016 film. The world building of 838 is really cool. All the citizens wear monochromatic colors, which might just be a hint at the cold functionality of this society, the emphasis being on natural beauty over the artificial kind of beauty of fashion. And just visually for the sequence, it helps Strange and America stick out like sore thumbs here. Also, a little detail I thought was interesting. If you look around, pretty much everyone is carrying an umbrella that might be connected to those rainbow colored clouds overhead, which might be an indicator that in this universe, rain and weather patterns are actually artificially controlled, scheduled on clockwork, coordinated by Reed Richards, maybe by Aurora Monroe Storm as well. A measure that they take to help combat climate change, ensure plant life is properly hydrated, and the people who live here just kind of have to deal with rain being part of their lives all the time.
That is a crazy theory and super cool.
Yeah.
That's a cool theory. It just makes me like a little bit sad we couldn't like dive even deeper into this world to see what else was up.
That's wild. I love that he got that just from
umbrellas.
Yeah, like umbrellas and foliage.
The agriculture,
and Reed Richards.
Not agriculture, but seeing all the, foliage.
Yeah. Amazing.
Of course, the traffic colors are reversed. Green for stop, thus the X's. Red for go, thus the arrows. Now, the fact that 838 proceeds on red when we would stop does foreshadow how the foolish Illuminati is gonna proceed on the Scarlet Witch when they definitely should not. Our man Bruce Campbell cameos. Sam Raimi's star from the Evil Dead films, who cameoed in all 3 of his Spider-Man movies. And all those characters were actually planned to be Mysterio, Quentin Beck, in Sam Raimi's 4th Spider-Man film before Sony canceled it. Peter Campbell's playing Pizza Papa, a vendor who sells pizza balls.
Time to deliver a pizza ball.
Strange curses his hand to punch himself in the face for 3 weeks. A nod to Ash's cursed hand in Evil Dead 2. A memory lane bank reveals the flashbacks of Christine giving Steven that watch, and America's origin losing her mothers in the Utopian parallel. But in the comics, this was not America's fault, or even the Bee's fault, and really her mothers sacrificed themselves and ended up disintegrating to becoming part of the universe. But here in the MCU, it's hinted that her moms might still be alive. So they arrive at the 838 Sanctum and the statue of Supreme Strange, which has been built out into the street from the sidewalks. The cars have to go around it and all look at it and pay respect. The plaque reads, Dr. Stephen Strange gave his life defeating Thanos. We express eternal gratitude to Earth's mightiest hero. Earth's mightiest hero, of course, the nickname for the Avengers in comics. There's a rare bookshop on the other side of the street called McCloud's, which could be a nod to comics writer Bob McCloud, who co-created The New Mutants with Chris Claremont. Mordo returns to the 2016 film. Strange says Mordo dedicated his life to trying to kill him, referring to that movie's post-credit scene where Mordo turned against all sorcerers.
Too many sorcerers.
We never got to see any real conflict between them since that moment. Mordo confirms Darkholds exist in every universe and explains the concept of dream walking.
I kind of wish that I don't know. Between Doctor Strange and Doctor Strange 2, we're missing something there because somehow Doctor Strange was privy to information that we never saw him receive. We got it as the audience at the post-credit scene, but we never actually saw him interact with Mordo since that movie until here. How did he get that data? That's,
Maybe, gossip, word goes around. The sorcerer community
hanging around the water cooler.
Yeah.
The sorcerer water cooler.
They all chat.
Projecting one's consciousness into one's alternate self. And over this, Raimi shows cross-dissolving montages of Wanda's ritual.
Yeah.
The visuals evoke the dream sequence of Rosemary's Baby. There's surrealism, superimposed shots, close-ups of the
music
eyes.
was cool
and
too.
I love how Danny Elfman scores this with rock. There's some drums, electric guitar. Really, this is the sound of witchcraft in the 90s to me. Like The Craft, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I very much dig it. But Mordo drugged the tea with green powder that also powers the cuffs, called the Sands of Nisanti, a spell from the comics that prevents the usage of magic for 3 minutes. Wanda dream walks into another universe's Westview house. The camera voyeuristically glides in and peeks out from behind the staircase. These point of view shots evoking John Carpenter's opening shots of Halloween. The way Wanda creeps in here is very much like a stalker, like Michael Myers. Now, Billy and Tommy are watching on the TV a black and white cartoon of Oswald and Hortensia, a 1928 Walt Disney short called The Skyscrapers. Now, Walt Disney made Oswald shorts for Universal before a contract dispute led to him launching Mickey Mouse and Steamboat Willie. So Oswald has actually gained a cult following over the years as the Mickey who could have been. And I just love how he shows up here in this alternate universe. A birthday photo of Wanda turns to stare at her, especially
that was pretty cool.
since the champagne is still frozen mid-spill. The peas roll around on the plate, evoking the way
the
the
ocean in the bowl is pretty
around
neat
in the
too.
kitchen in Poltergeist. An ocean churns in the coffee cup, an early sign of the incursions that dream walking risks. An ocean similarly crashed through the post-incursion universe of Sinister Strange. And a dream walking Wanda takes control of this Wanda, giving us this chilling moment when Elizabeth Olsen looks directly at the camera, breaking the fourth wall, as if to tell all of us, I see you. Just a really spooky horror trope that we've seen in the closing shots of horror films like Psycho and Paranormal Activity. Sarah breaks Wanda out of this dream-walking state by stabbing the Darkhold, and Sarah burns, crying a single tear. So Wanda turns to torturing Rintrah and the others to get Wong to confess that the Darkhold was actually a copy of the spells carved into the walls of the temple on Mount Wundagore, which
I was just so used to Doctor Strange being able to just give up his friends that I thought that Wong as Sorcerer Supreme would be like, the greater good, and then just not tell her.
Hold on. You're used to Strange giving up his friends?
Yeah, because Strange would do what it takes for the greater good. He would give Thanos the Time Stone, knowing full well the repercussions of what might happen, because eventually that's going to lead to a win. Doctor Strange is no stranger to making difficult decisions. When the fate of the world is in your hands, as it was in Wong's hands, the difficult choice, but perhaps the correct choice, would be to go, no, you can't break me, and you can kill these sorcerers, and I won't tell you anything.
But in Infinity War, Thanos was about to kill Iron Man, and Strange said, no, don't, I'll give it to you.
Well, yeah, but then everybody died.
I know, but I'm just saying, he was torturing Iron Man, and it was like, no, don't do that. I'll give you the stone.
But that's because he'd already done all the calculations, right?
I know, but it still looks like he gave him the stone so he wouldn't mess with RDJ anymore.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah, okay. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know. I just thought that Wong gave it up way too easily.
He did. I don't think that was a character thing. I think that was an edit thing. I think that was a matter of, we know where this is going, so let's just jump forward. They're trying to keep this as close to 2 hours as possible. I think that maybe they had a version where Wong was taking a longer time before giving in, and they were just like, we just got to keep this moving.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Fair
In the comics is a place where the demon Chthon inscribed the spells that were eventually drafted into the Darkhold book. This is also the mountain where, in some comics, Wanda and Pietro were actually born in the castle of the High Evolutionary. We got a nod to that comic backstory in WandaVision with the sighting of Bova milk, Bova being one of the High Evolutionary's Annie-men who nursed Wanda and Pietro. Wundagore Mountain is where Chthon initially cursed Wanda as a baby, though in the 616 MCU, WandaVision established that she was born to Irina and Oleg Maximoff in Sokovia. Though in that flashback, Wanda showed she already had, as a girl, low-level probability hex capabilities. So it remains to be seen if the MCU will trace that back to Chthon's curse, or if they're going to define Wanda as a mutant, or both. Wong takes Wanda to that temple where the walls are carved to look exactly like the Scarlet Witch page of the Darkhold that we saw in WandaVision episode 9. This temple's guarded by hulking creatures that may be based on the N'Garai, Chthon's Elder Spawn minions from the comics. But when they take a knee, Wanda realizes that the chamber isn't a tomb, but a throne. The altar she stands on is actually carved with that same horned head figure as we saw on the Darkhold cover. This is perhaps the horned form of Chthon from the comics. Meanwhile, Variant Christine explains that they are in Dimension 838, and she has designated Strange's home universe as 616. 616 is the numerical designation of the primary universe in the comics, and until now, the MCU has really been considered Earth 199999, based on a joke by Kevin Feige that he planned for the MCU to run for that many years, but now it is firmly codified as 616, which was hinted at in the TVA's film strip in Loki episode 1, and an Easter egg on a storage locker in Endgame, and interestingly Mysterio's line from Far From Home.
There are multiple realities, Peter. This is Earth, Dimension 616. I'm from Earth 833.
Now, Quentin Beck was lying in that moment. He was reciting a script written by Guterman, so it's just a total uncanny coincidence that they chose the correct numerical designation. Maybe Guterman is a TVA agent. No, probably not. Now, Christine compares 616 Steven to 838 Steven using his hand injuries, a kind of multiversal fingerprint. So, like for Peter Parker, losing a parent figure and the with great power quote are absolute constants for those variants, their hand injuries are the constant. And on that screen, you can see Steven's cell is D23, which is a Disney Easter egg, D for Disney, 23 for 1923, the year Walt Disney founded his animation studio. Christine says that this is the Baxter Foundation, a nod, of course, to the Baxter Building, headquarters of the Fantastic Four in the comics. Strange speculates that this could be part of the Avengers or S.H.I.E.L.D. or Hydra. Hydra was an organization that was tracking Strange since 2014's Captain America Winter Soldier.
What targets? You, Bruce Banner, Stephen Strange, anyone who's a threat.
That being the first time we heard Stephen Strange's mission in the MCU. But Mordo declares,
The Illuminati will see you now.
the Illuminati in the Marvel Comics is a 6-member group of leaders representing different super factions. You got Tony Stark, leader of the Avengers, Charles Xavier, leader of Mutant Kind, Reed Richards, leader of the Fantastic Four, Doctor Strange, Sorcerer Supreme, Black Bolt, leader of the Inhumans, and Namor, king of Atlantis. As is the case here though, their meddling often gets in their own way. Serving the Illuminati are these Ultron sentries, which are actually voiced by actor Ross Marquand, who voiced Ultron in What If and Red Skull in Infinity War. Now, the Baxter Foundation HQ is in Central Park of 838 Manhattan, and the interior is modeled on the lobby of the British Museum of London. Mordo introduces the 838 Illuminati lineup, including himself, naming himself Baron Karl Mordo, the character's name from the comics. Strange dodges the Union Jack shield of Captain Carter, leader of the 838 Avengers, played by Hayley Atwell, looking just as she does in What If, so presumably there are other Avengers in this 838 universe. Then there's Captain Marvel, Maria Rambeau, Defender of the Cosmos, Lashana Lynch returning from the 2019 Captain Marvel film, presumably from a history where Maria, not Carol Danvers, was irradiated by that Lightspeed engine. Then Black Agar Boltagun, aka Black Bolt, leader of the Inhumans and keeper of the Terrigen Mist. Anson Mount reprises the role from ABC's short-lived Inhuman series. Now, Inhumans are superpowered genetic experiments created by the Kree who live on the moon. Black Bolt's voice releases a powerful sonic blast, so the guy rarely talks. Here, he's seen with this tuning fork headgear from the comics. Terrigen Mist, meanwhile, is the Kree technology that creates creates Inhumans via cocoon. We actually saw this process with Quake in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And Terrigen Mist may tie into Miss Marvel, since that is how Kamala Khan gets her powers in the comics, though the Disney Plus series may be going in a different direction. Then of course, Reed Richards, aka the Elastic Mr. Fantastic of the Fantastic Four, played by fan cast Dreamboat John Krasinski. I like how he teleports in via this square portal, which is a completely new kind of tech than we've seen in the MCU. Seems very much like the kind of tech Richards and Dr. Doom use in the comics. Strange asks if the Fantastic Four, quote, charted in the 60s, of course comparing them to the Beatles, similar to the way Bruce Banner talked about the Avengers in Infinity War.
Broke up.
Yeah.
Like a band? Like the Beatles?
And the way Toby and Andrew thought the Avengers was a band in No Way Home.
Wait, you don't have the Avengers?
Is that a band? Are you in a band?
Now, Strange is probably just joking, but Ant-Man director Peyton Reed did pitch doing a Fantastic Four movie set in the 60s, like the Beatles movie A Hard Day's Night, and many of us have speculated that the Fantastic Four could have existed in the 60s of the 616 MCU, contemporaries of a younger Hank Pym.
That would have been great.
Wow.
A period piece Marvel movie. I would actually really enjoy that. I mean, we sort of got that with Captain Marvel. That was a period piece.
Yeah.
But like a full-blown like dedicated period piece would be super cool. You know, for the Fantastic Four.
That'd be fun.
That would be fun, yeah.
The way that in the Silver Age comics, the Fantastic Four and Hank Pym Ant-Man all kind of work together. Now, Reed explains that Strange's arrival at 838 risks an incursion, which is a term in Marvel Comics for when universes collide, like a series of incursions between Earth 616 and the Ultimates universe of 1610, the universe of Miles Morales, is what led to the 2015 Secret Wars event, when all these variant heroes and villains met in Doctor Doom's battle world, which is why many believe that the MCU might be headed toward a similar event in a 5th Avengers crossover film, the villain of which in this case might be Kang the Conqueror, because we saw what may have been incursions in the MCU in Miss Minute's intro video in Loki episode 1, and Kevin Feige just confirmed that Loki and Sylvie killing that Kang variant, He Who Remains, led to the sacred timeline unraveling into various incursions, and that's really what set the stage for the crisis of this movie. And remember, the original Kang variant, Nathaniel Richards, was a 31st century descendant of Reed Richards, so really this is all connected. And of course, the sixth member of this Illuminati floats in, Professor Charles Xavier, with Patrick Stewart returning for the Fox X-Men franchise.
We should tell him the truth.
But rather than the exact character from those films, which do have their own convoluted timeline in which Charles dies in Logan, this Charles has a yellow hover chair, a green suit, the blue and black tie, looking exactly as he does in the 90s animated series. Actually, if you listen closely, the music of this moment is Ron Wasserman's theme music.
Yeah! I love
Also, when
that
they introduce
song.
Captain Carter, they bring in Alan Silvestri's Captain America theme. Now, there is one more chair that's left empty on this Illuminati dais, suggesting some past 7th member, or just an extra chair that they keep open. Now, those Ultron sentries might suggest a variant Iron Man, since it was his tech that led to this appearance of Ultron in the 616 MCU. Then again, in the comics, it was Hank Pym who created Ultron, so that 7th seat could be his. But also in the comics, the Illuminati originally reached out to T'Challa, the Black Panther, who ended up deciding not to join the group. That might be his seat, and the Ultron sentries were just created by Reed Richards. So they finally revealed the truth that during their Infinity War conflict with Thanos, 838 Stephen used the Darkhold to try to find a solution in the multiverse, but in doing so, accidentally caused an incursion that killed everyone in that alternate universe.
Isn't it possible that that vacant chair is just for Stephen Strange? Am I crazy? Is that a stupid suggestion? I'm sorry. He was part of the Illuminati because he formed it, right?
I thought Professor X formed it.
Oh, whoops. Okay.
I thought it was Charles Xavier.
I thought Reed Richards said that Stephen Strange formed the Illuminati to make tough decisions. Or so, I thought that's what was said. I can't remember now.
Oh, I can't remember now.
Solution in the multiverse, but in doing so, accidentally caused an incursion that killed everyone in that alternate universe. Now, Reed does say that 838 Stephen never told them the details, so there's probably more to that backstory. Now, Charles uses his telepathy to, thank goodness, show, not tell. Taking us to the day they beat Thanos using the Book of Ashanti, but look closely at Thanos' corpse. Yikes! His double-bladed Uru blade is broken and plunged into his chest. And importantly, his gauntlet does not yet have all the stones. We see the Power Stone, Space Stone, Reality Stone, and Soul Stones, but the Mind Stone is missing, which tells us that Vision may still be alive in 838. 838 Strange's fingertips are black, showing the Darkhold's corruption on his soul, just like we saw on the fingers of Wanda and Agatha. Black Bolt whispers, "I'm sorry." And I like how his voice echoes louder and louder, with Anson Mount recording multiple versions of this line, building up to a complete shout. It's a cool way of showing how that sonic blast obliterates Strange. Wanda uses the Darkhold Temple to dreamwalk into 838 recreate Wanda's house. I like that little detail of her knocking over the dominoes. But this also confirms to us that in the 838 dimension, Wanda had that perfect life with Billy and Tommy. So the Mind Stone being missing from Thanos' gauntlet and Vision's survival might have been the key difference there. So this possessed Wanda attacks the Baxter Foundation, and Charles tells Stephen to get to the Book of Ashanti, and he says,
"Just because someone stumbles and loses their way doesn't mean they're lost forever."
I really liked hearing his breakdown of how Vision is probably alive in this dimension. It just still makes me a little bit sad that we didn't see him at all.
Yeah.
But I guess the assumption that he's out there somewhere, perhaps working with Tom Cruise, Iron Man, that's something, I suppose.
It did feel a little bit weird that there was not even a glimpse of Vision.
Hardly a mention.
Yeah, for a second, I was like, did she just like immaculately conceive these children? Did she just, form them out of thin air?
Just a direct quote from 2014's X-Men Days of Future Past, when Charles said this line to his younger self.
Just because someone stumbles, loses their way, it doesn't mean they're lost forever.
Now that movie ended with Charles in his first hover chair we saw in live action film. So who knows, maybe that restored timeline from Days of Future Past didn't lead to Logan, it could have led to this. And then after finishing off the Ultrons, Wanda marches in, covered in their oil like it is blood, recalling that dark moment in Age of Ultron when she ripped out Ultron's heart and just let it bleed that oil. The oil streaks on her face totally evokes Sissy Spacek and Carrie, which totally influences the bloodbath Wanda unleashes here. Also the way her hand bursts out of the darkness later in her mind, reminding us of Brian De Palma's final shot of that movie. Reed says that he has children of his own and that their mother is alive, referring to Susan Storm, the Invisible Woman, and their children, Franklin Richards and Valeria Richards, and confirming that lineage that will one day lead to Nathaniel Richards, Kang. Wanda erases Black Bolt's mouth like Neo in The Matrix, and folks, this is the most horrific death we have seen in the MCU. And I hate to do this, but we gotta go through it here. Because think about it, Black Bolt does not have to scream. The guy spends most of his time not at all using his vocal cords, but it's just the panic of his mouth being erased that rattles him to his core. So he ends up making the worst possible mistake of vocalizing anything. That scream ricochets around his jaw. You can see it glowing on the other side of his skin until it amplifies and goes back into his brain. Blood blowing out of his nose, his eyes bulging a bit, and his skull blows out the back, then caving in, and then brains oozing out the side as his tuning fork flickers out. God almighty. Then Reed makes the mistake of it.
You know what's interesting is that he's got this powerful thing, but it couldn't penetrate the skin inside of his mouth.
Oh, yeah? Well, I suppose...
I mean, it's
a choice, right? It's a choice. It makes it way more horrific.
And visceral.
Yeah, and just like, it's so gross, this idea of like his mouth closed up and then his scream just literally blew his brains out in his costume. And I think that's also a way of keeping it PG-13, right? I mean, it's still horrific, and you know what's going on, but you're not seeing any of the brains and stuff. Like,
yeah, it's pretty awful. I mean, I thought it was pretty horrific.
Attacking, and Wanda unravels his elastic body into ribbons and then pops his head like a piñata. So then Peggy and Maria jump in, Peggy using jetpack thrusters that she presumably got from Reed. Peggy spits out some blood and then quotes Cap's iconic line of, "I can do this all day," but then poor Peggy gets severed at the midsection by her own shield. Actually, if you look closely, after that shield goes through, Peggy is still initially in one piece, but as the camera refocuses on the shield in the foreground, her blurry form in the background slumps forward, but in two halves. And then Wanda collapses a statue on Maria. At least for Maria, it can be an open coffin. I mean, each of these four actors must have been directed on how to emote their own deaths, but there is no way all these actors were on set with each other or told how each other would die. Because they should be screaming in horror. Otherwise, these four must be pretty desensitized to people dying this way. Charles enters Wanda's mind.
I did think that was very strange.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
I mentioned it multiple times. I did think it was very odd that they didn't react to each other when like their comrades of the Illuminati were dying.
And like you do have your theories that like they must have shot everyone individually and then just like put them in there, or certain people.
At least a few of them. Yeah, a few of them must have come later. Because if you look at the shots and you look at who went first in the fight, it's like, okay, it seems like some of these people could have been added in late.
Or must be pretty desensitized to people dying this way. Charles enters Wanda's mind, depicted as a white void where he's able to walk. He wears a black turtleneck, and beyond that door is a pile of rubble, including a TV set playing the intro to WandaVision episode 1. Air sirens raid in. This rubble's clearly the rubble that Wanda and Pietro were buried under in Sokovia when Stark Warhead landed in their home. But the Scarlet Witch's red cloud closes in, and she snaps his neck, making this the third time we have had to see Patrick Stewart and Xavier die. Now, all these Marvel heroes heroes coming together to try to stop the Scarlet Witch, who does not care who she hurts as she tries to be with her kids, are plot points inspired directly by the House of M comic event. But whereas that story goes deeper and deeper into X-Men lore, and makes some major moves on whether or not they even exist in reality, this movie's connections to mutant kind stop right here. So Strange, America, and Christine flee as Wanda chases them, her eyes glowing red, looking a lot like her zombie form from those episodes of What If. They find the hatch, the waypoint of the Book of Ashanti, but it is locked, requiring a special key, Strange's wristwatch given to him by Christine. Another absolute element shared by all Stranges. So they get to the Book of Ashanti in the Gap Junction, but Wanda attacks, and a page from the book burns out, showing a star if you look closely. So remember the Darkhold page showed the Scarlet Witch. This book shows America Chavez's symbol, proof that the girl was destined to be the perfect antidote to the dark sorcery of the Scarlet Witch. And Strange sees this page burn, which is how he knows what to tell America in that final act. Strange and Christine get banished to a post-incursion universe, which slowly melts.
I didn't put that together.
I didn't put that together, but I did see the star. The second time round when we watched it, well, it was on the IMAX screen, so it was bigger, but I
saw the star
it.
both times. I just didn't know what that meant. I just thought it was like some kind of sorcery thing. I didn't connect it to America Chavez.
That's cool.
Set melting, looking a lot like the way reality eroded in What If Episode 4 after Strange broke an absolute point. And they pass a floating honey beige 1973 Oldsmobile Delta 88. The same car Sam Raimi puts in all of his movies. It was Uncle Ben's car in the Spider-Man movies and appeared in the Evil Dead series and in Drag Me to Hell. Now you'll notice this incursion universe has two red streaks racing through it, the same color as that looming crescent shape beyond the Sanctum stairway. Now kids, what are crescents? Crescents, of course, are formed by the shadow of the Earth on the moon from the light of the sun behind us. So I wonder if this crescent could be this dead world's shadow being cast on the other world that collided into it. Maybe Earth 838, the reality of 838 Strange that collided into this universe, the dimension of Sinister Strange. That could have been the unseen annihilation that the Illuminati referred to. 838 Strange might have used the Darkhold to dreamwalk into Sinister Strange. And Sinister Strange tried to cast him out, and that war between the two dragged their worlds together in a way that killed everyone in Sinister Strange's universe. That could have been the war that he lost, that he was talking about. And the guilt over winning that war might have been what 838 Strange confessed to the rest of the Illuminati. And now these two streaks might represent the lifelines of those two universes, synced, forever parallel, but never touching, yet still way too close. I mean, the creepiest detail about this place is the fact that a freaking field of bones stretches in front of the sanctum. Everyone in this reality died from an incursion, but no human remains are visible anywhere else. That means that these unfortunate souls of this universe fled to the sanctum, looking for sanctuary, begging this Strange to save him, and he watched as they died. Strange brings up their dead sister Donna, whom he says fell in the ice when they were kids. In the comics, Donna drowned after getting a cramp in a swimming pool. Sinister Strange reveals a third eye on his forehead. Now, Strange sometimes has the third eye in the comics as a manifestation of the Eye of Agamotto, a way of showing the mystical sight that the Ancient One referred to when she touched this spot on his head.
Open your eyes.
But in this case, the third eye represents the twisted evil of the Darkhold, the curse of Chthon living on. These two Stranges duel. Sinister Strange's sorcery is purple, the same color of Agatha's magic, the color of the Dark Dimension in Dormammu, which is something that's going to play a very big role as Dormammu's niece, Clea, shows up in the post-credits scene to work with a Strange with three eyes. During the fight, Strange grabs a piano, making that same horror music sting that up until now in this movie has meant fear, but instead now he weaponizes the fear to lift the music notes off the page, each note making the same note it would if you were to play it on the piano. I love this music duel so much!
So good.
Sinister Strange blocks the notes by conjuring the 5 lines of a scale, which is how you would contain loose notes in sheet music, and forming a new arrangement which plays as Johann Sebastian Bach's famous organ chords. Strange launches Sinister Strange out the window, impaling him on the fence like Saruman, but the third eye still opens because the evil lives.
Did anyone else think it was at least a little bit odd that Sinister Strange lost his sister the exact same way as our 616 Doctor Strange? The whole thing is there's alternate universes, alternate dimensions, and so presumably things were slightly different for each of them. Is that a nexus point or whatever it's called?
An absolute point.
An absolute point?
Yeah,
like,
I think it might
Donna
be.
had to die in every, like that sucks for Donna.
Kinda like Uncle
There's
Ben.
not a single universe out there where Donna lived. It just seems a little bit odd.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that was just like a fluke where he was like, okay, what's this one thing then? Instead of like talking about his broken hands, he was just like, well, we had a sister, Donna. But that was like a nice little bit of information. It felt a little ham-fisted in there for me at that point, because I was like, oh, it feels like you're trying to give us more things to kind of learn about Doctor Strange and feel emotionally connected to him, so we remember that this movie is still about him and it's not about Wanda.
I didn't think that at all, but interesting. I just thought it was a little bit odd because presumably there's a universe out there for Doctor Strange where he gets to still like see his sister.
Maybe, but then again, in episode 4 of What If, he kept trying to save Christine,
and she dies every
time. But I guess that was in that one universe. So yeah, maybe in another universe that's not an absolute point. This stuff is just like mind-bending when you think about it too hard.
Well, it completely goes against the rules of the multiverse, scientifically speaking, if there isn't a universe out there where Donna lives. That's all I'm saying.
That's true.
But I mean,
fair point.
The actual multiverse and the MCU multiverse are two different things.
So Strange now uses the Darkhold to dreamwalk into the one Strange still left in 616, the buried Defender Strange, resurrecting the corpse. Now remember, earlier, Wong told Wanda that no sorcerer can pass the barrier to Wundagore Temple. So those souls of the damned that attacked Defender Strange are not just an obstacle. Using them by turning them into a new cloak is literally the only way Strange could fly over there. That's just a really smart example of what screenwriters call economy of story. Repurposing story elements we thought were just set dressing or characterization or raised stakes, like the Defender Strange corpse, the Watch, Strange seeing a star page in the Book of Ashanti, these souls of the damned, and instead giving them new practical functions for the hero to advance. When a bunch of nerds in your movie theater started applauding in this moment, going, yes! It isn't just because we love Sam Raimi's zombie shit. I mean, we do. It's because this moment was a culmination of all these seeds that were planted throughout the movie. Now, when the souls of the damned attacked Christine, she banishes them with the Brazier of Bomb Goliath, the same artifact Strange tried to use on Caecilius in the 2016 film.
You don't know how to use that, do you?
Yeah, so that is why Caecilius hesitated. That thing could have banished him to hell. Strange arrives with the damned soul cape, and Wanda says, "Dreamwalking, you hypocrite!" The same thing Caecilius shouted at the Ancient One when she used Dark Dimension magic.
Hypocrite!
Now, realizing America's power is needed to beat Wanda, Strange repeats,
"This is the only way."
So once again, we have looped back to the opening scene. A Defender Strange must once again face this moral quandary of sacrificing America. This time, though, America accepts her fate. So why does Strange now make a different choice? What has changed? What makes this Strange different? Well, this Strange trusts America to control her own power because every portal she opened in this film has brought them to where they needed to go. Remember, this is the same Strange who looked at 14,605 paths and found the one correct path for his life. And so, unlike all the other Stranges who are always seeking a better life, including 838 Strange, who looked in a different universe for one, our Strange finally realizes he has gratitude for the path that he is on. Because folks, the true ideal of America is not the pursuit of happiness, it's gratitude for what we have. So America punches Wanda first into hell. I love that, that's where she thinks she needs to go. But America learns that the better destination for Wanda is just to give the woman what she wants, her Westview home, where her sons actually see her true nature. Now, based on the other Wanda's bruises, this is actually 838, the same Wanda that she possessed earlier.
Right.
Interesting how now on the TV is Snow White and the Seven Dwarves. Remember, in the alt universe, there was an alt universe Walt Disney short starring Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, but in this one, it's the iconic Walt Disney first feature-length animated film, Snow White and the Seven Dwarves. Also, remember, a story with an evil witch queen that haunted me as a little kid. So these poor boys are on pins and needles about an evil witch queen coming in through a portal into their living room.
I was wondering why the Snow White reference was there. I'm glad he explained it, because I had no idea why they were showing Snow White in the background.
That just kind of blows my mind, because it's just, you know, the level of detail that everybody working on this movie is thinking about. It's like even what's playing in the background.
Right.
Well, let's have Snow White because there's a wicked witch in it. And it's like, oh my God.
I didn't think about that.
Amazing.
And despite being possessed into doing horrible things, this other Wanda forgives the Scarlet Witch, assuring her that these boys will be loved, telling the mother what she needs to hear. And so Wanda collapses the temple on herself and she destroys the Darkholds in every reality. And while it seems like 616 Wanda may be dead, we do still have this other Wanda who was there for all the craziest shit that happened in this movie. A Wanda who, remember, shares this 838 reality with mutants, with the Fantastic Four. So some version of the House of M, no more mutants moment may be on the way in the MCU. In the final scenes of this movie, Strange gets closure with Christine. He leaves America in training at Kamar-Taj and finally gives Sorcerer Supreme Wong the bow he deserves. And most importantly, he finally fixes the broken watch. The camera transitioning from the broken lens to clarity. But that clear vision proves itself a curse in the final shot of the film. The man is seeing too well with 3 eyes as the curse of the Darkhold lives on. It's a scarlet letter for his sins and a new unhealable wound for the surgeon to suffer.
Wow.
That was thorough. Wow.
That's definitely a word for it. That was some thorough of madness.
Yeah. I love it. It definitely makes me appreciate it more. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. Like, I know that there were some issues, but just in terms of enjoyment and it being something different and horror, I really, really liked it. Watching Eric Voss break it down like this made me have a newfound appreciation.
I definitely appreciate a lot of the nuances that he's bringing up. I appreciate a lot of the hidden details and gems and expanding further on some of the things that the filmmakers were aiming for in telling this particular story. The moral goals in terms of philosophical goals of like what happened, like what you should be striving for in life. You know, all those little things I thought were pretty cool. It's just that for me, there was a lack of spectacle that I was looking for that I thought was achieved in Doctor Strange. And I was hoping for a level up like James Cameron did for Terminator 1 to Terminator 2. You watch Terminator 2, it's like a real level up in terms of story, in terms of effects, in terms of everything. And I thought that maybe Doctor Strange 2 would have done that. But it just didn't. It had other agenda on its mind, and I'm like, I just have to accept that. I do plan to watch the movie a third time in theaters at some point so I can see it in 3D, but I've come to accept it. You know, there was someone who was complaining on in the comments of our live stream going, you know, for 2 hours, you just complained about the movie. It's like, well, yeah, I gave you the appreciation video. I know that's much shorter, but it's like I do have a number of grievances. It doesn't mean I don't like the movie. It's just that what it boils down to is I wish it did more. That's it. I wish it did more, and there's a lot of areas where I wish it did more. What they've done is still remarkable. What they've done is still really cool, and Eric Voss, New Rockstars, has helped me to appreciate that. But there's 2 parts of me. There's like the different dimension, the multiverse of Jabby. Like it's just different, you know, parts of my mind going, okay, well, I do appreciate what they've done here, but I still wish that we got more.
That's fair. And I did appreciate as well, just kind of the clarification, like you were saying, about some of the overarching themes of the movie, because I did notice when I was watching it, this question kept coming up, like, are you happy? Are you happy?
Yeah.
Are you happy? And then it's like, oh, it's not about happiness, it's about gratitude. Wong says that at the end of the movie. And so like I appreciated that being made clear.
You guys, thanks so much for hanging out. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the bell icon, all notifications, and vote this up. I'm Jabby Kuwait. This is
The fate of the world